Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4. We made it 4 episodes. To watch what now? This is the podcast where we discuss the good, the bad, the stuff in between, and basically a podcast where it leaves you wondering, what did I just watch? I am Eric from Hey Internet Eric here, and with me, as always, is my lovely co-host and a good personal friend. She's a former AVN Hall of Famer. She is a former radio show host, and now I believe since last night, she will never look at Vinnie Barbarino and the Sweat Hogs the same way again.
Nope.
Miss Melissa Hill, how are you doing, Melissa?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much.
Good. We were texting last night, and I think this is the most excited because we were watching the movie at the same time. This is the most excited. Uh, I've been looking forward to a discussion since we've started this because this is a first time. This was a first time watch for you. Um,
Yes.
you decided to go with 1976's Carrie. Any specific reason other than you had never seen it before that you decided to go with Carrie?
Um, well, it's a classic film and it's on everyone's top 10 list.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I when I was watching it, I was realizing I'm like, "Oh, right. I think this is probably why I didn't watch it." Like there's a few little triggering parts.
Right.
So, I felt like it was in order to be part of society, I needed I needed to watch this film. So, yeah, pretty much that was it. Like I felt like I already knew what the gist was about.
Right.
So, but there's so much more.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you before we dive into it. You even though you'd never seen it before, you pretty much knew the plot. You knew like the big scenes. You knew a lot of what was going to happen, even though a lot of the stuff still shocked you going into this, right? Like
Right.
you knew
Yeah.
of the bucket. I'm assuming you knew it happened at the prom, and you knew it didn't end well for a lot of people for the most part. That's what I'm assuming you knew.
Well, hey, again. Teddy, stop.
Kids.
They both want to be where I'm sitting. And Teddy, stop. Oh gosh. I might have to end up moving. Anyway,
Yeah.
Teddy, stop. Stop it. Stop. I'm going to have to end up moving chairs. Um anyway, what was the question again?
I think what was I think it was basically you knew somewhat what you were getting into. You
Oh,
knew it took place at the prom, the pig's blood, and certain things like that, but you were still pretty surprised with what you got overall.
yes. Yeah. I was very emotional and I I cried. I cried watching this movie, and there was also some like a little bit of uh, I don't want to say maybe visceral reaction. I wasn't a very popular kid in school, and
Mm-hmm.
I was just doing my own thing. I was a ballet dancer. Everybody else was playing soccer and
Mm-hmm.
bobby socks. So like
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't blend. I wasn't part of the group that everybody
Right.
else was part of. So that was like a little triggering.
Mm-hmm.
I also didn't grow up in a very friendly household.
Okay.
So even though my neither of my parents were like Carrie's mom,
Mm-hmm.
it was still, you know, there was just still some things that kind of like made me, well, it would make anybody shiver, of
Right.
course.
Mm-hmm.
But there was like some other thing. Um, I find it just because she was always getting in trouble wearing her nightgown.
Mm-hmm.
And that reminded me of being a kid and always being in trouble while wearing
Yeah.
my nightgown. Because
Yeah.
I would be wearing my nightgown and it would just be very cold
Mm-hmm.
and, I'd be punished.
Yeah.
And so that kind of, it really, this movie, I think, affected me in ways that I didn't really expect. I just thought,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm going to watch this horror film that the rest of the world has seen, anyone in our age group, or
Mm-hmm.
a horror film buff that's younger, I guess.
Yeah.
Or even the remake.
Mm-hmm.
Someone saw the newer version, which I didn't see. I just
Mm-hmm.
watched the Sissy Spacek one. But so yeah, so like I just had a very silent day today. I didn't really,
Really.
as you could tell, I didn't go online
Right.
until, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna be talking about this film, our shows tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta make some sort of online presence. So, but it was because I just was really thinking a lot. It just
Mm-hmm.
really, I don't know.
Well, we had a I think a really good conversation when we were texting, because I've seen it dozens of times,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the stuff we were discussing we agreed on with these characters, and we'll get right into it. This came out in 1976. For anyone who doesn't know the plot, basically we're following Carrie White. She is I guess you would say an outsider in high school, because of her home life. Um, she is teased miserably, and one day in the locker room, she has her first period, and she this confused me a little bit. I'm not big on stuff like that. I figured she would know what it is by 17, but she had her first period, and she thought she was dying, and everyone was making fun of her, throwing pads at her, and this and that, and she goes home to I'm going to say a religious fanatic who is completely out of her mind type mother. Everything is a sin. And basically, what happens is Sue Snell, who is played by Amy Irving, she feels guilty, like legitimately guilty, and she wants to make up for it by getting her boyfriend Tommy to ask Carrie to the prom.
Right. She feels guilty because she was one of the girls in the locker room that
Mm-hmm.
was making fun of her.
Yeah.
Which by the way, going back to that scene, it was quite an opening for a movie. I mean, it starts off with the girls playing volleyball for PE
Mm-hmm.
class, and then it goes into the locker room, and it's like slow motion, slow pan. Teddy wants to slow motion, slow pan of all the characters
Yep.
who are high school seniors and juniors, taking their showers and playing with their and you see full frontal nudity, and
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting that
Yeah.
on everyone, on every girl.
Yeah, and it is interesting. I was even talking to my wife. She's seen the movie a dozen times, and I was talking to you. I was like, it's 1976, but it's also interesting now watching this movie as an adult, when the actresses are all of age, but then they're playing high school seniors. So it's just kind of
Right.
it's just one of those situations.
Right.
And
Which in a way, to Teddy, to go back a little bit in my life, in
sure,
the adult industry. Teddy, stop. Oh my gosh. Uh, when I left the industry, there was this debate. Stop it. Come on. There was a debate about raising the age of performers,
mm-hmm,
because they're 18 and over.
mm-hmm,
And they're like, oh well, who's gonna play the high school girls? And
right,
actresses are
yeah, exactly,
you don't have to be the age that you're portraying, like
mm-hmm,
that's part of entertainment and acting, and suspend your disbelief. So it's like any high school, any movie I remember watching growing up, even Porky's, those kids, those guys were Teddy, seriously right now, stop. Those kids were played by men.
mm-hmm.
So come here.
Yeah,
Just
it's happened, like,
so
even just growing up. We're watching TV shows where they're high school students, but they're played by actors in their early 20s, mid 20s. Sometimes I found out, like, one of the actresses in this movie was a high schooler, but she was 30 years old. You know what I mean?
right.
And we all know the story. It ends up with a joke being played that her and Tommy are made prom king and queen. The pig blood. We'll get into more as it goes along. The bucket of pig's blood is dropped on her, and she uses her telekinetic powers to get her revenge.
Well,
Um,
basically, you just went from beginning to end, like boom.
yep. Like I said, we're gonna
Show's
really,
over.
yep. Good night, everybody. One thing before we jump into this, I was kind of impressed, like when we were talking about how recognizable this cast was. Like you
Yeah.
told me you liked Sissy Spacek, and you were
Mhm.
surprised and happy that Amy Irving was in this. You said she plays Sue. We all know who John Travolta is. He plays Billy Nolan. William Catt is Tommy Ross. He's basically known for the Greatest American Hero, which I've seen bits and pieces of growing up.
Mhm.
Betty Buckley was Mrs. Collins, the gym teacher. You said she was from, was it Eight is Enough or Just the Ten of
Yeah.
Us?
No, I thought she was the mom from Eight is Enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I grew up having a huge crush on PJ Souls. She was Norma, the bully with the hat. She's from Rock and Roll High School and the original Halloween.
And
And
did she
then
wear that hat in every movie? Because I mean,
I,
I like
I,
hats and everything, but
I don't think so, but I know it became a trademark for a while.
okay.
And the other person, I mean, we have Priscilla Pointer as Sue's mom. She is Amy Irving's mom in real life. The horror community knows her from she's in one of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. Piper Laurie is Margaret White, and the person I said was 30 years old was Edie McClurg. Edie McClurg she was one of the, I guess she was involved in the situation in the gym. She had red hair. She had the big, thick, wide glasses. She's really well known for if you've ever seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off. She is the assistant to the principal. She's
Oh,
in
okay.
yeah. She's
Yeah, because she looked really familiar.
she's the one I said was 30 years old playing a high school student.
Okay, all right.
So
She also looked like Velma.
a little bit. She definitely she looked like Velma. So as we said, this starts with the volleyball game at the high school, which is that's the sport I never wanted to play in high school because, especially as a freshman, because you're always against the seniors that try to bean you.
Right.
And they did a good job in the very beginning showing how much everyone dislikes Carrie because they say hit it to Carrie, you'll know she'll screw it up, which she
Right.
does. And they
Mm-hmm.
all walk back to the locker room. They're telling her to eat shit, and Norma hits her on the head with her hat. Just to show how much they hate each other, or they all hate her. Excuse me. And then that's when we get the full power scene, and it shows how sympathetic Carrie is because when she has that period and she thinks she's dying, there's no weight in between these girls teasing her. You know what I mean? There's no sympathy from anyone, and it's it's just one of those scenes where you're like, I was wondering how you were thinking how much you were gonna hate these girls in high school because of how this mob mentality just jumped on this one little, I guess this innocent girl type of thing.
Well, sure, we'd like to, as grown-ups, look back and think, oh, I would have handled that totally different. But the way that she portrayed, she acted in that scene, um, she really did seem like she was losing her mind and,
Mm-hmm.
running around asking for help. But I mean, the way when they shot it from behind and she's all wet, she kind of reminded me of like a little troll. Sorry, like because her hair was wet and she was
Yeah.
hunched over and she's
Mm-hmm.
like, help me, and she's
Mm-hmm.
got blood on her hands. And I was actually surprised that they didn't freak out,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a horror, that what they like. I'm just thinking, I remember in high school seeing a girl have a seizure, and we're just like, what's wrong with her?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, I would like to think that, yeah, I wouldn't have been one of those people throwing tampons or pads at her. But I mean, also, if her character had asked, what's wrong with me? Why am I bleeding?
Yeah.
Then, maybe someone would have been a little bit more, oh my gosh, this is your period. Don't you know about having your
Yeah.
period or,
Yeah.
your menstrual cycle? So I was, and I was kind of like, she's 16. Like by the time I had already been having my period for like 7 years at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, wow, 16's kind of, oh, going back though to like the movie, I guess it wouldn't have been okay to portray a 15-year-old taking a
Right.
shower.
Yeah, that'd be a
So
lot worse.
right. So we'll portray a 16-year-old
Yeah.
having a shower, which, times are different. The age of consent was different back then.
Yeah.
You could
And
drink at 18 and not
oh god, yeah.
21. So we have to keep all that in mind.
Yeah, and well, I was also asking my wife too, and she said, Carrie's 17. It's possible because Carrie's very athletic, because she walks everywhere. If you're very, very
Oh, yeah.
thin, it could, it could wait a couple of years. And then again, what are they teaching in health class in 1976? You know what I mean? And obviously,
Right,
she's not learning it from mom at home. So obviously, I
right.
guess that those are situations you got to take into consideration. And
Suspend
then,
your disbelief is what
yeah,
they say in movie magic.
exactly. And what I like is then we're seeing her starting to get her power, her telekinetic powers, and use them a little bit. I love that scene where she's called into the principal's office for to go home early, and
after she had her meltdown in the locker room, spreading blood everywhere.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, you go ahead. Yeah,
I want to
please.
touch on something.
Please.
What I found also really interesting was that it says a lot about where we were in society at that time as well, because when the gym teacher is in the principal's office smoking a cigarette, by the way, she has blood smeared on her gym shorts from Carrie, and there's a point where the gym teacher stands next to the principal, who's sitting down, and so he's eye level at the blood that is on her shorts, and the look of like
disgust
that is is on his face. It was just sort of like, okay, yeah, I mean, sure, you can be like, oh my God, that blood came from some girl's vagina.
Yeah.
but it was deeper, more than that. It was also the way that I think women were thought of. And yeah, the way the women were thought of and portrayed in movies at that time is really, again, it's kind of like, I guess in a way, I this is like the horror version of Porky's. That's the only thing I can relate it to, because yeah. Anyway, so and then so I was questioning. I was like, why is this gym teacher smoking a cigarette? And then my question was answered a few minutes later.
Yeah.
So that Carrie could.
Exactly. Yeah, and again, it shows how much Carrie is unnoticed, because the principal keeps calling her Cassie. You know what I mean? Sitting in Cassie White, and she corrects, or the teacher corrects him. It's Carrie, and the fucker still keeps calling her Cassie.
I had a teacher who always called me Liz.
Yeah. Yeah, it just shows whether whether the teachers care or if you're just a number. You know what I mean? Type of thing.
Yeah.
And this was a cool scene, because as he's trying to tell her, we'll let you go home early. Do you want to see the nurse? And she's saying no, blah blah blah. She's focusing on that ashtray that the gym teacher's using, and you start to see it move a little bit, and that's foreshadowing, what's going to happen. And then when he says Cassie one more time, I think she yells, it's Carrie, and I think it flips over. Yeah. And because we forgot to mention, when she's having her meltdown in the shower, the teacher slaps her. Miss Collins slaps her to calm her down, and then one of the overhead lights, the light bulb, shatters at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
And again, as Carrie's walking home, you have this little shithead on a bike. You know what I mean? Taunting her, and then she just gives him that look, and suddenly he's thrown off of his bike, type of thing. So we're getting to that little buildup of, we know that this girl has this power, and we're just waiting to see her use it, because she definitely used it on purpose on that kid on the bicycle that was taunting her.
Right. Now, was he the one that was calling her Carrie, baby?
He
Carrie,
was calling her creepy Carrie.
creepy Carrie. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought,
he was calling her creepy Carrie as he was going back and forth in between the trees, and then he laughed at her and she looked at him, and then he flipped off on the bike.
right. I remember as a kid when this movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it could have been Firestarter with Drew Barrymore,
Mm-hmm.
but one of those. I wished that I had that power.
See that that
Yeah.
I felt the same way too. I was the quiet fat kid who's always picked on. I kept to myself. I
Uh,
sat in the back of the class that, so to no one would bug me type of thing. And
mm-hmm.
it was of course gym class, where sports count. They mean something. You mess up in baseball in gym class. Everyone's gonna have a meltdown. And there were times when I thought to myself, and we all have, if we've been the outsider, what would we do if we had this? It's one of those morality tales too. What would we do if we had this power? Would we use it against these people that teased us and were bad to us? And I guarantee you, there are plenty of people that would consider using it for bad. And there are times I don't blame them. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
we were in her situation.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, because you hold all that anger and
Mm-hmm.
hurt and frustration in, and I just again remember growing up, and it was like I wanted to be seen and heard,
Mm-hmm.
um, not just by my classmates, but uh, at home,
Right.
because I wasn't allowed to speak, really,
Mm-hmm.
unless I was spoken to or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And when I get in trouble, my dad would be like, "Wipe that look off your face," and it's like, what, And so inside my mind, I was just like, just
Yeah.
rage building up, and yeah.
Yeah.
Again, that's why I was like, this movie just sort of like hit some really personal,
Mm-hmm.
traumatic memories
Yeah.
for me. Anyway, um, oh yeah. So when Carrie goes home, and by the time she goes home, she's hiding in her attic, her bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the teacher calls Carrie's mom
Mm-hmm.
and lets her know. I mean, we don't know that
Right.
because we only hear one side of the conversation, but we find out later, a few minutes later, that it was the teacher that called the mom to explain that Carrie was sent home, and they probably berated the mom for not explaining the birds and bees to Carrie,
Right.
and having this situation. So um I forgot where I was going to go with this, having having a senior moment, but it just yeah, I totally forgot where I was going to go with that. Anyway, so she gets home, and then she gets oh, I remember. I was looking at my notes. I wrote,
Mm-hmm.
how was Carrie ever conceived with this crazy lady as a mom? Because
Yeah.
everything was a sin, and she
Every
was
single thing was a sin. And the thing is, with Margaret, the whole town knows she's this crazy, religious woman, because right before she confronts Carrie about what happened at school, she visits Sue's mom, and she's
right,
taking donations for the church. And Sue's mom is something. So, because Sue's mom was on the phone with one of her girlfriends, and she kind of rolls her eyes when she looks at the screen door to see who's there, and she's like, oh, basically she says, oh great, Margaret White's here, you know what I mean?
uh-huh,
And she does her damnedest to give her the money and shoo her away, you know what I mean?
right,
So it's setting up that Margaret isn't just, everything's a sin, she's super super religious, that the White family household has like this reputation, you know what I mean?
right. And I remember in that scene when the mom was going, well, we assume she's going door to door, kind of
Mm-hmm.
like the Avon lady.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, now I know why missionaries are sent out of town. Because why would you want to live in the same town where you're basically going door to door and trying to get people to convert to your specific religion or
Mm-hmm.
spread the gospel or something like that. And I was like, this. So I remember thinking, like, this has got to be really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyway, that was my takeaway from that. And yeah, so but it's not clear what church or whatever it is that she's accepting donations for. My guess is that that's how she's paying her bills, if at all.
It very well could be. It very well could
Yeah.
be, because there are no scenes of Margaret at church.
Right.
And then we get to this was a big I guess you'd say crazy moment. Carrie is, she's begging her mom, why didn't you just tell me? Basically explain what could have happened to me. She literally says, like, I thought I was dying, Mama. And all Mama says is, something like, it was a sin, and it was the curse of blood and all the biblical stuff. And then she grabs Carrie and says, we're gonna pray. And she grabs her and she literally drags her, kicking and screaming, into a prayer closet and locks the door.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows how fanatical Margaret really is. Instead of consoling her daughter, regardless of, she's 17 years old and she doesn't know what her period is, you should be consoling your daughter who thought at the time she was dying, but instead, nope, get in your closet, say your prayers, repent, all that stuff, and I'll let you out in a couple hours, get rid of the sin. And it just shows, and again, this is, in my opinion, this is just good foreshadowing about, Carrie's got some telekinetic powers. You've seen how she's dealt with, the principal not getting her name correctly, the kid on the bike, and then, she's having this struggle with her mom that, again, it's not going to end well for somebody.
Right. Yeah.
And it just, again, it shows, again, in I think Piper Laurie's performance as Margaret, who I read she thought this movie was a comedy because she couldn't believe how over the top her lines were. And Brian De Palma, the director, actually had to take her aside, and she said, "No, this is the straight up horror movie. You got to take this a little bit more seriously." And I didn't find anything really comedic in this movie at all. So I honestly didn't know. I mean, I'm no actor. I'm no actress. You know what I mean? I didn't know how she got that take, but I just thought that was a little surprising. She actually thought this was more of a black comedy than anything.
Interesting. Wow. Oh, going back. Sorry, this is just an unimportant thing.
Go ahead, please.
The kid on the bike scene, I was like, why are they focusing on him for so long? Well, later at the reading the credits, he must be the son of Brian De Palma.
Yeah, so I think he was his nephew or his son or something like that. But yeah,
I wondered whatever happened to him. Did he go on to have a successful career?
Hey, Hollywood's full of nepotism, but I've never heard of him unless he changed his name. So let me see. Next, I think we have, like, you can correct me if I'm jumping too far ahead. Next, we have the scene where we're in class and Tommy's poem is being read, and you could tell I love the English teacher, but because he could tell right away Tommy's full of shit with his poem. He could tell right away, and he's asking if anyone has anything to say, and Carrie just whispers out the word "beautiful." And you could look at William. It's this great close-up of William Katt's face and Carrie in the background. He goes from smiling to pissed off because she said something. And I don't know, honestly, if it's because he's the jock and the weird girl in class said something to make him the center of attention. I never understood that.
I took it as he was annoyed at the teacher because the teacher ridiculed Carrie for saying it was beautiful. And so like he secretly felt for the girl, but he can't display it because he is the jock and he has to be the cool kid. Point. So I don't know if he necessarily had a crush on her, but I took it as maybe because the ages of the actors, I took it more as like a big brother, and he liked her because she had a crush on him, maybe. Or
it's possible because we definitely get that feeling later on, and I just like how I really like that shot again, his close up and Carrie in the background, because again, it's showing how she's, she's in her own little world. And then we jump to the punishment in gym class, to some of the worst sounding music in 1976 that I've ever heard. I'm but it shows again it's a different time because they're all forced to do, sit-ups and push-ups and jumping jacks and everything. And eventually Chris played by what is uh what is her name? Nancy Allen. Um Chris is the one who basically says we don't have to do this, and everyone, including Sue, is just basically saying, "Just shut up, do your punishment, or else you can't go to the prom."
Mhm.
And Chris stands up to Miss Collins, and again, 1976, Miss Collins winds up and slaps her in the fucking face, and revokes her prom tickets, and she's kicked aside. Everyone else is busy doing the jumping jacks, and Chris is I don't know if she's also expelled or whatever, but her prom tickets are revoked.
She's a
And
horrible person.
oh,
she's horrible. Like when I said this, she's a piece of work.
Yeah.
I said she was a real piece of work.
She's
So-
when we were texting, I told you that first off, she's one of my favorite Stephen King villains, because I was telling my wife, think of it this way: if she made it past her fate at the end of the movie, just think of what she would be as an adult, because she's this wicked and this evil as a high schooler. And I said, that's what, I don't know how familiar you are with Stephen King, but this is a guy that has killer clowns and aliens and resurrected animals and stuff like that. And he shows that the biggest monsters are people. You know what I mean? It shows how sick and twisted we can really be when we want to be, and lots of times for no reason. And Chris is the perfect example of that.
Yeah. So I guess is this when they so she can't go to prom.
Mm-hmm.
And oh wait, before that though, wasn't there the gym teacher asks everyone whose their prom dates are going to be?
Yes.
And she's trying to get everyone to feel sympathetic towards Carrie and stop treating her so mean and ridiculing her. So I had a feeling that the gym teacher herself, maybe when she was a kid, might have also been some sort of an outcast. Now I'm jumping around. And then
you're fine.
And then when the gym teacher takes Carrie aside, and now I'm jumping ahead. And
you're fine.
takes her aside and says, "You're a beautiful girl. Put your hair up a little bit. Wear some gloss." I'm like, bitch is going to get her in trouble. I remember going home one day, I had put some lip gloss on and mascara for class photos. And I got in so much trouble by my dad.
Yeah.
So that was what I thought of anyway, but that never actually ended up happening. That's where my mind went. But yeah, so I think during that scene where the gym teacher is asking all the girls who's taking them to the prom, she's just like, "Oh, well, isn't that lovely? How lucky for you. It must be nice living in your life," type thing. And I guess maybe that's where, oh gosh, what's her name? The girl that I like.
Sue.
Yeah.
Amy Irving. Sue.
Amy Irving gets the idea then to have her boyfriend take Carrie to the prom.
So, and here's a question. Since you have never seen this before, we all know Sue was on the up and up. Did you think Sue was legitimate with wanting to make amends, or do you think she was playing a prank initially?
Oh no, no. I always felt Sue was on the up and up, because I think when earlier in the movie when Mrs. White is going door to door and shows up at Sue's house to talk to her mom, they show Sue standing in the background kind of hiding because the situation at school with Carrie having her first menstrual cycle and freaking out in the locker room, that had just happened, a couple of hours previous to that. And so I feel like at that point, Sue started feeling, was already feeling bad. Maybe because maybe she felt like Carrie's mom was there to tell her mom what happened. And so I feel like she definitely wanted to make amends, or, redeem herself in some way, do something nice for Carrie.
Yeah.
I thought it was a sweet idea, but I was thinking, maybe they could have just made friends with her.
Yeah.
But then we wouldn't have the movie or the book.
Exactly. And it does lead to one of my favorite little scenes where it's Sue's busy doing homework and she's focusing on her books, and Tommy's watching some old movie. He's sitting on the floor. They're not even near each other, and he's just watching some TV. And then he just looks at her, turns around, and he says, "Fine, I'll do it." So it's just one of those, silent treatments. You're not getting any action. We're not going to have any type of fun until you do what I say type of moments. And that I can appreciate because there is a little bit of comedy like that. It's not ha ha,
Right.
grab your sides type of comedy, but I thought that was kind of a fun, sweet little scene between the two of them where he's just like, like any couple, fine,
Right.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
And in between that, Carrie's at the library. She's doing research on telekinesis. And then what I have here is we jump to the introduction of Billy, your favorite sweat hog, Mr. John Travolta.
And you could hear him. You could hear the Vinnie Barbarino coming out a little bit during that drive. But
because I guess I read
he was terrible.
He's not very good in this movie, and he's not a good person. But you're right about the Vinnie Barbarino thing. I guess he was in the filming of Welcome Back, Kotter when he tried out for this. He showed up in his sweat hog outfit and everything, so I think he was still in character.
Right.
And
I used to watch Welcome Back, Kotter, and there was a partial season where he really wasn't around very much.
Right. Yeah. Travolta fever finally hit. And it just shows how bad this relationship is between him and Chris. He's like this big dumb idiot, and she's the daughter of the devil type of thing, and they're just so she's verbally abusive to him, calling him a stupid shit, and then he just hauls off and smacks her to shut her up type of thing.
Right.
And
multiple
then
times
30 seconds later, let's just say she uses her womanly ways to convince him, let's all go. And, I hate Carrie White so much. Basically, we're going to pull a prank on her. And I'll say this, as she's convincing him, she must have some great ventriloquist skills or something. How she's able to say all that dialogue with her mouth full. And it's just like, it's one of those scenes where there's a point to that in this film, because again, she's convincing him to do something, but it's just, in my opinion, just so poorly done with the way that dialogue is. I couldn't help but at least roll my eyes at that moment.
Right. I right just before that, there seemed to be hope that the Billy character was going to smarten up and ditch the chick. But then I think he portrayed the way a teenage boy thinks really well.
Yeah. He's thinking with the wrong head. There's no other way to say it. He's just a dumb idiot. And because he does say that, he always calls himself, why am I still with you type of thing. And then that's when she flips the switch. She's trapping him.
Right.
And
she obviously knows that she can get him to do whatever she wants. You know what? She was like the Nelly, Little House on the Prairie, except, taken to the extreme.
Yeah, big time. And that's the one thing is it's like, I didn't see a lot of Travolta in the 70s, but he came off really dumb in this, like mentally, like he's not book smart in Welcome Back, Kotter. I was just wondering if that was like his shtick in the 70s type of thing. And I wasn't a big fan of his performance, but I'm kind of glad that he's not like a main character. He's just kind of sprinkled in here and there.
Right. You don't even see him at the school. Like, I'm wondering, who is this guy?
So, well, that makes me think. I think he's graduated. I think he's older than Chris because they're all seniors. I think.
Yeah, it looked like he was taking her to a frat party.
Oh, he probably was because he was driving down. He was yelling. He was cheering at his buddies that were driving next to him. Oh, toss me one of those beers. So they're throwing a beer from one car to another. He's drinking and driving. He's flirting with the girls that drive by him. With his girlfriend next to him. It's like he didn't care. You know what I mean? So he was definitely probably 19, 20. And then what I have next is we already got to the scene where you were talking about where Miss Collins is kind of telling Carrie to pretty herself up and give her that confidence. And then we get to another scene I really, really like is where Tommy, he asks Carrie to the prom in the library and she runs away scared. What I like is he walks to her porch and he knocks on the door and she's more scared that Tommy's going to wake up mom. And she knows that if Carrie's got, she knows that if mom sees that she's got a boy on the porch, she's probably going to get the crap beat out of her type of thing. Which,
again, brought up some some memories of my childhood.
Yeah.
Like, I could totally relate to Carrie. I was surprised she even opened the door. My house probably wouldn't have opened the door. But, but then we wouldn't have had that tension of them talking through the screen. But I know what you're this goes along with kind of something I touched on at the beginning of our show is so he's there to persuade her. First off, so he drives up to her house and he sees, he looks at the paper, looks at the house, sees that it's the same address, and then tosses the paper. And it made me think, I was like, wow, how did we ever get around at that age? Like, I was remembering, I was like, no wonder you never really went off of your street too much because you didn't know where places were, and so that brought a lot of thoughts to my mind of how, especially during that time, people could stay in such a enclosed portion of their neighborhood because they just don't know, because we didn't have GPS back then. And I don't think, I doubt that families, referred to their paper map when driving through a neighborhood. You just had to know either landmarks or street names, go to this street, make a left. I just remember driving around and having little arrows.
Yep. You had to have basically a notepad for all the steps, turn left here, go 3 blocks that way, turn right here, go pass an oak tree. Okay. If you pass the mailbox, you've gone too far, that type of stuff.
Right. And so, so thinking about that and how the world is today, it was another thing that you would never see in a movie film today, unless the movie took place in the, before the 90s. But, it's just, and so my mind started wandering back to also like, how did people know what time to meet anyone when no one had their own phone? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
You had a phone at home and later answering machines came out, but you had a phone at home. You had to be at home to receive a phone call in order to know where to go. Or, like, oh, we'll set a time, call me at this time. And so you had to, be able to be near a payphone to call someone at the preset time in order to know where to go.
It's kind of fun, watching a movie like this, with the technology that we grew up with, and then watching it with someone from, like, say, my daughter's generation. And, because there are times when I'll watch, like, eventually with this show, we'll throw in a couple of 1980s slasher movies or whodunits or stuff like that. And the kids nowadays are like, this could easily be solved if everyone had a cell phone. You know what I mean? Type like that. Or there's a situation, we're talking about the phones and stuff like that. My nephew went to his grandma's one day and she still had, the phones, attached to the wall, the landline. And he didn't know how to use it because it still had a cord on it. You know what I mean? He was still used to cell phones. So it's just like you said, it's really interesting to see, you brought up phone booths. You know what I mean? My daughter was younger, you know, we were watching one of the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and she didn't know what the hell he was getting into to change into his outfit. Yeah,
Oh
she
my
never knew what
gosh.
a phone booth was. So it is definitely a product of its time, but it does, like you said, it kind of reminded me growing up, you know. I mean, I
Yeah.
wasn't born until 81, but still we still had that little bit of the 70s in the early 80s, you know,
Right.
overflow, and it did bring me back to a much simpler time, you know.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
really was.
Um.
And next we get to, as
Oh,
an animal lover, the scene I
wait.
wish I would have warned you about.
Well, wait a second. Just
Okay.
go back. So he goes to the porch and
Yes.
says,
My bad.
"Is there something I can say to change your mind? Girls do it all the time."
Yeah. It's
Again,
1976.
again, just another, way reminder
Mhm.
really of how the females were thought of
Yeah.
and portrayed.
Yeah,
But
you guys should know your place type of thing. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, like no was just a temporary pause
Yeah. Pretty
until
much. Yeah.
until yeah. So anyway, go on. Yes,
Well,
the
what I was
next
saying,
scene.
we get to the next scene, and I do wish I warned you about this. It really slipped my mind.
Yeah,
You as an animal lover,
I
so
was a little pissed off at you.
oh, I will apologize for that, and we will be making a note of that for future films that we
Uh-huh.
watch on this. I'll let everybody know, where they slaughter a pig because they want to get a bucket of pig's blood filled up
Oh,
to dump on Carrie at the prom.
he
Eh,
didn't just slaughter the pig.
yeah,
He
he
took a sledgehammer.
sledgehammer.
He
Yeah.
took a sledgehammer and hit it, we assume, in the head. Thank
Hmm.
goodness. Thank goodness
Yeah.
they did not show it.
Right.
But I was watching that
Yeah.
scene like that and cursing you. I was like, God
Well,
damn you, Eric.
that you know, no offense. That's one reason why I thought, since it was off screen, it might have been okay, and
Yeah.
it's definitely something we'll definitely talk about going forward. But I hate to say, what was more disturbing than the animal being killed was how excited Chris was getting every time Billy swung that sledgehammer. Because at first they're with some schmuck friend of theirs, and he won't do it. And Billy's just like, all right, fine, fuck it, I'll do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm out here past my bedtime. You know, Chris, you're annoying me. I'm going to slap you later, type of situation.
Right.
And as he's, lack of a better term, taking the animal out, it's like she's in heat. She's getting so excited seeing all
Yeah.
this violence, and again it just shows how despicable and disgusting this girl is.
Right. And then
And
there was and then
again,
yeah, go
King's
ahead.
just so good at showing how twisted humans are.
Right. And then there's also the beautiful crazy ratio. She's really pretty, or
Mm-hmm.
the more beautiful they are, the crazier they are.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it
It
is?
seems like
Yeah.
it. It seems like it. They hide the ugliness. They hide the ugliness inside, type of thing.
Right. But then there was the phrase that he said in the movie that I was like, oh, that's where this comes from. Get her done. He's
Yeah.
like, get her done. Get
Yep.
her done.
Yeah.
And I thought, does anyone today? No, because every once in a while they're still, I'm gonna get her done.
Mm-hmm.
Do they realize where the phrase is coming from? Probably not.
Probably not.
But anyway, so
Let's see here. Okay, the next scene I've got, unless you got something before that, this is where Carrie tells her mom she's been invited to the prom, and of
right.
course
Okay.
it's Margaret saying, they're all gonna laugh at you, it's a sin, blah 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 blah, and she's forcing Carrie to stay home. And I think this
Right.
was right after Carrie broke her. She like looked in her mirror and broke it, or that might have happened earlier. But either way, I like how this was a scene where Carrie finally stood up for herself.
Right.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? She's using her telekinetic powers to push her mom away, to close the windows, and she has a great line. She says, I'll paraphrase it because I don't know the exact line, but she says, I'm going to the prom, Mom, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's one of those, in my opinion, it's like one of those like fist pumping moments. Like she's finally
Yeah.
standing up for herself to a
Right.
crazy mother who's done nothing but abuse her and show no love to her. And she's basically saying, I'm finally going to do what I want to do.
Right.
And I thought that was a great scene.
And again, there was a little bit in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I know people are going to think of, what kind of household did I come from? Carrie's mom, played by Piper Laurie, kind of reminded me, looks wise, of my mom.
Really?
You know, because at that time, the permed hair.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was a young mom.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like, I mean, Carrie's mom didn't look much older than her.
I don't think she was. I don't think the actress was much older than Sissy was either.
Right. And when
Not too much.
When they did a close up of her face, it reminded me of my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at age 16, that was kind of like, you know, the mother and daughter dynamic starts to change a little bit. Kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, the son and father, when the son grows taller than their father, then the dynamic starts to change. But
Yep.
I remember at 16 getting into a fight with my mom, and
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what it was about,
Right.
but it was just, I think, you know, I was the same height as her, or at least with my hair, I was, because we all had big hair back then, and you know, just being like, I'm 16 now, or I'm 17, or I'm 18 now, and you know, my mom and I think we slapped each other.
Mm-hmm.
So there was just part of like the Carrie's character, like she still loved her mom, like her mom was her person
Mm-hmm.
all through life, and now all of a sudden they're at a conflict because Carrie has become a woman because she
Right.
has started her menstrual cycle, and so now it's like, so I think there's also it wasn't just like Carrie's now a sinner because she's a woman, you know, according to the Bible
Mm-hmm.
and the gospel that Carrie's mom was spouting off. But there's also what we've already said, the dueling of the daughter and the mom,
Mm-hmm.
you know, not necessarily taking over power, but taking power of oneself.
She's taking control.
Yeah.
She finally wants to do something for herself, and
Mm-hmm.
like you said, she's now a woman. She's had her menstrual cycle. A boy, regardless, if he was put up to it, a boy is finally interested in her. You know what I mean? She's getting
Right.
out of the house. She's getting into a public situation, and I think it's a great scene because again, it shows how strong Carrie really is, and that leads to this goofy situation. It's just this getting ready for the prom montage where it's really, really goofy with the guys. I'm not going to really talk about it because it is, the goofy music is back. They speed up the audio for some reason. I don't
Oh
know
yeah.
if Brian De
So
Palma was on coke at that moment or something.
well, you know, that was like, if that was the first segment of the movie that they filmed, I
Mm-hmm.
could see why Piper Laurie would think it was a comedy
Yeah.
because, you know, because when she was like, they're all gonna laugh at you,
Mm-hmm.
like the way it was said, it
Yeah.
sounded kind of funny.
Yeah.
And you know, and it reminded me, I think, of Mad TV.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're all gonna laugh at you. I don't know. There's just it just reminded me of something else. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, so yeah, that there's a little bit of comedy relief watching them. Yeah, like what you said. And the guy wears the tuxedo t-shirt, and I was like, oh, because they're like, you can rent a tuxedo for $10. I'm like, in what world does
Yeah.
that exist? Like,
Yeah.
wow.
$10 to rent one. I was
Right.
telling you, it was like $100 to rent one for my wedding. That was like an 07.
Right. I
Yeah,
guess like
$10.
back then, what gas cost, 50 cents a gallon or something?
Oh, I remember, my dad driving around. Oh, I'm just gonna put a couple bucks in, and then give him half a tank. You know what I mean?
Right. So yeah, exactly. So say gas was 50 cents a gallon or whatever. So what would, so $10, so that's you know, comparing, what would $10 be today? So now gas is three, what, three,
It's
so
for me here in my town in Illinois. I drove past. It was like $3.29 a gallon.
so does that mean you can rent a tuxedo these days for $300?
Jeez, forget that. I'll go to Goodwill and find one for $10
or 30. I'm trying to math this out.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. No one's talking. There's nobody. I mean, the chat people is really quiet. So yeah, so they're getting ready for the prom, and I was also really curious as to how these people, because there's the decorating committee. They're decorating, the under the sea, whatever the theme was for the prom. They're doing all the theme stuff. And there's like a whole nother group of kids that are, setting up the sabotage, the bucket of blood, and, doing the rope and all this other stuff. And nobody notices them.
Nobody notices it. Right.
Like, what? Yeah. So
and again, while that's happening, you have PJ Soul's character. Her and her boyfriend are setting up to fix the votes for the prom queen and prom king type of thing.
Yeah, and he's like, "Can you be here at 6:30?" He goes, "I'll be there at 8." the guy who, sorry, jumping ahead, the guy that one of the bad people approaches one of the committee members of the prom on the day of the prom and convinces him, "Hey, I want to help out." And they're like, where were you for the past 2 weeks? We could have used your help.
Yeah.
What can you do? And he's like, I'll collect the ballots for king and queen. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
You want to be here at 8 o'clock? That's fine too.
Right. It's just easy storytelling. That's how I looked at it.
Right. Yeah.
So Tommy picks up Carrie, takes her to prom, and I'm not gonna lie, Sissy Spacek cleans up very well.
Right.
I think she looked very pretty. And that's what made her mom super, super worried, because she now thinks she's going to be out fornicating and this and that and all that. She's calling her breasts dirty pillows, and she looks at her and she's like, "Mom, they're called breasts. Every woman has them." And then that's where she uses her telekinesis to throw her mom on the bed as Tommy's honking outside. And again, it's just one of those "I'm going, see you later" type moments.
Right. When I was a little surprised that she didn't use hairspray, but then it was the 1970s, and her, maybe.
I'm sure one of the ingredients was sinful in hairspray, or whatever, according to her mom.
But yeah, when we saw Carrie getting ready, every time she did this with her hair, ran her fingers through her hair, I felt like I could smell, "Gee, your hair smells terrific." Do you remember that shampoo?
Yep. Yep. I remember all those commercials. Yeah.
Yeah. "Gee, your hair smells terrific." That was what came through.
What's your secret? Yeah.
Right. And
Chris,
even though
Chris from Black Gloves Reviews here, he says, "Carrie's the only novel I've read from King. It's a great book. He's reading Salem's Lot at the moment, but yes, very good film by De Palma." Yeah, Brian De Palma's got a lot of really good films. I do have one on the docket called Sisters with Margot Kidder that we'll definitely have to get to down the line.
Okay.
They're at the prom, and what I really like is Carrie's now finally noticeable. You know what I mean? I was thinking to myself when I was watching it this time, she's only picked on by a handful of people. You know what I mean? She's basically just ignored by everybody else. And it was nice seeing other people, and you could tell it was legitimate, asking her where she got her dress. They were happy to see her. They were welcoming her in. And it was really cool to see her happy.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to see the chemistry between Sissy Spacek and William Katt as Tommy, because I was telling you, I said, I don't think he was going to act upon it, but I think at least at the moment, Tommy was kind of falling for her.
Yeah, I felt like he took her under his wing, when they pulled up and parked the car, and she asked if they could sit there for a while, and and he was like, "Are you nervous?" Like he understood and wanted to protect her, and and then I even though I know that it's a horror film and it's going to end terribly, like I was watching that and I was really rooting for Carrie, and I was crying too. Is that where I said I'm bawling my eyes out?
You said you knew how it was ending, or how it was good, the prom night was going to end, but you still were rooting for Carrie at the prom.
Yeah.
And I think again, it's to the performances. Like there's the scene where the gym teacher sits down and compliments Carrie, and Tommy's like, "You better not be flirting with my girl," type of thing, that type of stuff. And then they
Yeah.
get the ballots for the king and queen, and they see that they're on it, and Carrie doesn't want to vote for him, and Tommy's just like, "Why not? Who cares?" You know what I mean? And again, you see her; she's that front or that wall that she's built up because she's afraid, you know what I mean, she's nervous, and then that wall that was forced upon her by her mother is finally starting to go away. And I thought it was great to see the way that the two worked well with each other. And then when he forces her to dance, I told you that's my favorite scene, where he forces her to dance, and they're dancing slowly, and then suddenly they're spinning one way and the camera's spinning the other way, and it's like they're in their own little world. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And
It
I
was
thought
very sweet.
it was very sweet. It's I understood why you were crying, type of thing. It's just the way the song that they used. I thought it was just the perfect song, and that's what sucks because what's going to happen because we already know the bucket's been set up. We're just like, this is really going to fucking suck because this is her moment to shine. This is the happiest she's ever been. This is going to be probably her last, because I know you didn't know the ending at the time. This is going to probably be her last happy moment. And then they're nominated. They win the prom king and queen title. They're up on the stage. They're both legitimately happy. Everybody's happy except for fucking Norma. You know what I mean? She's, pissed off. And you have Billy and Chris under the stage holding the rope for the bucket. And that's when Sue walks in. And Sue sees them. And what I liked was Sue was legitimately happy. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter that it was her boyfriend up there with Carrie. She was legitimately happy for Carrie. And then she saw, I think she sees the rope. So she goes to investigate, and she sees, Tweedledee and Tweedledum fighting. You know what I mean? Billy's being stupid, and Chris is probably calling him a dumb shit, so he slaps her again. And she knows something's up, and it just sucks because that's when the gym teacher sees Sue, and she knows doesn't have any tickets. She's not going to be there, type of thing. And she thinks Sue's doing something. So she grabs Sue and throws her out instead of allowing Sue to stop, or she's not listening. She won't, listen to reason because Sue knows something's up. She's seen Billy and Chris, and it's just one of those moments where you're just like, damn it, if you would have just listened to her, type of thing.
Right. If she would have just said, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah, exactly.
Because the way that the other thing about how this film was made is that there's longer pauses. I mean, maybe that was also how it was in the 1970s. There's not as many fast cuts as there are nowadays. I think maybe because equipment was so heavy.
Yeah.
Or maybe a lower budget or something. But, so you see Sue, she looks up, she sees it's pointed to a bucket, and then she follows the rope back down, and then she's like, so you assume that the gym teacher sees Sue doing that, going, oh gosh, Sue is noticing something. I better go find her. I better go talk to her to see what the problem is. That's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, because it makes you wonder, like, if Sue's there and she's not supposed to be there, I understand throwing her out. But wouldn't you question why the fuck she was trying to get underneath, the stage? Wouldn't you want to look under there as well and notice the two people under there? So she throws them out, and then we have the stereotypical close up on Chris she's licking her lips, she's ready to do this, she yanks it, and then it just comes down. There's no noise. There's no music. There's no dialogue. All you hear is the bucket hitting like one of the rafters, and
then it hits him, and then it hits Tommy in the head and knocks him.
It falls down, and in the book it kills him because it's 1974 and everything was heavier, so it cracked his skull. But we don't know if Tommy died at that moment because we do see him being picked up and carried out. But we get this close up of everybody in the crowd. and everyone is shocked and disgusted except for fucking Norma. You know what I mean? She's the one who starts laughing. And I
Uh-huh.
think she even nudges the guy next to her to try to get him to laugh. And he just looks at her like, you crazy bitch. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
She's the only one doing it. No one is laughing. The principal's upset. Miss Collins is near tears. Before Tommy got hit, I told you to pay attention to Tommy. He looks out to the crowd, and even though you don't hear him say it, he's pointing. He says, what the hell? So he's
Mm-hmm.
legitimately mad. And then we get to the whole montage of Carrie hearing her mom repeat, they're all going to laugh at you. And she's looking out to the crowd, and she sees, in my opinion, it's in her mind. I don't think anyone's
Right.
laughing but Norma, but she sees everybody laughing at her,
Right.
including Miss Collins, including the principal. And that's just kind of, it puts her in a trance. And I'll tell you what, Sissy Spacek looked, in my opinion, so scary when those
Oh
lights
God.
hit, when she's covered in that blood, and she's got like, her eyes are bugging out of her head. And again,
Right.
I think she's in a trance, and just the way the light shines on her, and she's just in this red. And they have that sting, that music sting from like Psycho. You've heard that, the
Yeah, yeah.
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 We hear that, and it's just her looking this way, and like the doors are shutting on students trying to run away, and she's looking this way, and this stuff's happening, and
Oh
it's
no,
just,
and then the hose.
yep. She gets the fire hose to come out, and she's spraying students, and she sprays Norma, and it knocks her out. And I guess that really knocked out. That's PJ Souls really getting knocked out in that scene. It destroyed her eardrum. But
Oh wow.
hey, that's the best take. Let's leave it in the movie type of thing. And you see kids getting trampled on. And what happens is now you have the principal and the English teacher. They're arguing at the microphone, and they get hit with the water, so they get electrocuted. And then that's what starts this fire. And it's this great shot of Carrie just standing there, and then just the senior prom decorations is just engulfed
Right.
in flames. And she's just slowly walking, like the Frankenstein monster, just slow as all this shit is happening behind her. And you got Billy and Chris, watching from the windows. At first they were happy because, their prank happened, and then they're seeing all this chaos. And then what was your thought when, sadly, Miss Collins didn't make it out? Were you expecting Miss Collins to get it, the gym teacher?
No, I wasn't. That was a shock. I was totally surprised because I was like, she was the only one that believed in Carrie. Like I would have thought that at the end of the movie she takes Carrie home and raises her as her daughter. Like that's what I thought was gonna happen. So
Yeah, so
shocking twist.
So she takes out she takes out Miss Collins. She has, I think, like a beam or something from the ceiling falls and cuts her in half or something like that.
No, I thought it was a table. Didn't it?
That's what it was. Yes.
But then I was like, those cafeteria tables aren't heavy enough to like. But I guess if they're traveling at a high speed of rate.
And again, back in the 70s, we made stuff to last. You know what I mean? It's not like our car bumpers that are made of plastic nowadays. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So that's true. That was I didn't know, having not watched the movie, I didn't know that there was going to be a fire in the movie. Mm-hmm. So like previously when you had sent me a meme or something, mm-hmm. and I was thinking, oh, is that from the remake? I didn't know that there's fire in the movie. But I always, previously I had always wondered why they chose a pink dress for a redhead. And mm-hmm. now I understand why. Because it kind of all just sort of blends in and emphasizes the red of the blood. But I loved the way that Sissy Spacek moved, not just mm-hmm. walking slowly, mm-hmm. but just turning slow. Like she's still shocked that this blood is on her, mm-hmm. and she's just slowly moving.
Very robotic,
yeah, and monster like. Mm-hmm. So and then so that was very shocking. I did not realize that basically the whole junior and senior class gets
there's not many survivors. We do find out in the sequel, which in my opinion isn't worth watching.
I started watching it last night.
The Rage? Carrie 2? Was that the sequel? That's
the one with
okay.
Amy Irving.
Yes,
Yeah,
where she comes back. Okay.
yeah, and because I was curious, because after
Yeah.
the way that this movie ended, I was also surprised that it ended focused on Amy Irving, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like what's going to happen here? I didn't realize it was going to be 23 years later
Right.
that they do a part two, but
Yeah, they mentioned. I think they mentioned in that movie, because Amy Irving's talking to the new Carrie. You know what I mean? She
uh-huh.
talks about the prom night. I think she says there's like over 70 students died
Oh,
that
okay.
night. So it was a big casualty. And then that's when we get to the part where Carrie is walking down the street, and you texted me about the fire truck that passes by a girl covered in blood.
Right. I was like, there's this girl walking down the street covered in blood, looking and the fire truck just, zooms right past her. And I'm like, nobody notices that? Like, I mean, they didn't just drop off one of their paramedics or something to check on her while the rest of them go look at the, fight the fire.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was a little surprising. And then I was like, oh, it's still not over. There's still more movie to happen.
Yeah, we still got a little bit, because now we have Bill. We got Chris and Billy in the car, and Billy's already half in the back. He's slobbering on himself. You can tell he's drunk. And Chris is driving. And again, it shows how fucking psycho she is.
Oh
She's
yeah.
right behind Carrie, and she sees her, and she floors it, and she's going to run Carrie over, hit and run. And again, this robot, like you said, you like how she just kind of, like a monster. She just turns her head, and the camera zooms in on her eyes, and the car is thrown off the road and explodes like it's nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then
Yeah.
Carrie goes on her merry way back home.
Right. Yeah, that chick was just pure evil. Not a fan.
I know, and that's, like I said, I just imagine if she didn't die, how she would be as an adult. You know
Oh
what I
God,
mean?
terrible
Yeah.
person. Like, where was her mother?
You find out more in the book. Like, she's basically a daddy's girl, a rich kid who gets whatever she wants. So she's kind of acting out type of thing.
Oh, okay.
She's got daddy wrapped around the finger. Daddy doesn't know that she's the bad girl type of thing when he's not around.
Okay. All right. So Carrie gets home, and I guess her mom is hiding. We don't, so they follow Carrie. The camera follows Carrie up the stairs to her
Mm-hmm.
attic, and she just slowly, goes directly to her bathtub, fills up her water, fills up the bathtub with water, gets out of the dress, takes a bath and cleans up and puts on her nightgown.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where, again, I got more visceral reaction, because I'm like, it's cold. She just got out of, her hair is still wet.
She's in an attic.
She's in an attic, and she's only wearing a nightgown. She must be cold.
Yeah.
And then, and that's when crazy starts. So
yeah, and that's really when Margaret goes full crazy, because this is the part that really sucked, because all Carrie wants to do is be held by her mom. Again,
right.
Kind of like what we saw earlier when she first had the period. And all mom wants to talk about is what happened with her father, with Ralph, Carrie's father, Ralph.
Okay.
And she talks about, how Margaret was super into religion, and everything was a sin very young in her age. And she knew that, sex out of marriage was a sin, but they did it once,
Mm-hmm.
So then they decided to marry. And she says, for the longest time we lived sinlessly. So they were in a sexless marriage. So I'm assuming Margaret thought sex was only, to procreate, to have children type of thing. But then one night Ralph got drunk. There's this long monologue about how she says, I could smell the whiskey on his breath, and he took me, and I'm assuming marital rape. And she talks about how she liked it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then, she says, I should have given you to God the day you were born. I mean, who tells that to their child when their child has just had this type of traumatic experience? Like, she doesn't know what happened at the school, but she knows something happened. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, they laughed at her, and her
Mm-hmm.
her cleavage was showing, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't, she had blood on her. What,
Yeah.
she heard her daughter taking the bath. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe in her mind, she thought her daughter had sex and now was
True.
home washing it off.
Mm-hmm.
But what was I gonna? Gosh darn it! I forgot again. I forgot what I was gonna say. Something about So oh, on a side note though, does anyone? I always thought sex doesn't work once you've drank whiskey, so that part didn't make sense to me.
If you drink too much.
Okay.
If you drink too much, things don't work. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay. So but yeah, so so it wasn't ever clear, how the husband, Carrie's dad left. I guess she told him, she told her, but I don't know. I was still so into the, like, oh my gosh, everyone's wearing nightgowns.
Well,
Violence is going to happen.
It was earlier in the movie where they talked about how, dad was pushed away by the sin. And then Carrie looks at Margaret. She's like, she left with another woman, Mama. You know that. So that's why.
Okay.
And then, with the sequel, you find out Ralph got around because, that's Carrie's, half sister and all this and that.
Oh, and, okay. Well, thanks for telling me.
You'd figure it out. Trust me. You trust me.
Okay.
Also, I didn't know if you were going to finish the movie. Then we get to this.
Okay. Well, okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. When I started watching the part 2, again, more about how, and this was 23 years later,
right?
And the dudes were still jerks. They were like more jerks in the 1990s movie.
They were fucking assholes.
Like,
I mean,
the scoring system for, oh God, that was terrible. That's why I turned it off, because I was like, no.
It gets worse. It gets worse. It gets worse.
Okay.
Speaking of getting worse, Margaret finally hugs Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
And literally and figuratively, Margaret stabs Carrie in the back. And I guarantee that was on purpose, to have her stabbed in the back with the kitchen knife, because
this is her mom. I remember what I was going to say.
Go ahead before you forget.
No. When she says, I should have given you to God the day you were born, I didn't understand what she meant until she stabbed her in the back.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, again, it's the person that you go to when you're sad, when you need comfort, and it's the mother that's stabbing the child in the back. So I guarantee you that was on purpose. So Carrie falls down the stairs. You see the hole in the back of her nightgown that she's coughing up a little bit of blood. And Margaret, like a fucking Looney Tune, is trying to look angelic as she's walking down the stairs with the butcher knife out in her hand. And then she does the sign of the cross, and she's going to take Carrie out. How did you think it was going to end before we got to the scene with Margaret? Did you think Margaret was going to take her out?
No. I thought when I saw her holding the knife, I thought Carrie was going to turn the knife around on her.
Okay.
That's what I thought was going to happen.
Close. She gets all the other kitchen utensils. She even throws to crucify her basically in the doorway, so she looks like the religious statue that was in the prayer closet.
Which is why she was walking like this, because if she hadn't been walking like that, the scene would have never worked.
Exactly. But Carrie's impaling her with everything. She's impaling her with the potato peeler.
Yeah.
I think one of those like flat edge spatulas that you use, icing on the cake type of thing, impales her. And then what happens is, still, Carrie goes and pulls everything out, and she's hugging her mom. And again, this is another heartbreaking scene. Carrie's got nothing. You know what I mean? So she takes her to the prayer closet, and she uses her telekinesis to first start the house on fire and then have it crumble on both of them, killing them in the process.
Okay. I was wondering, how did the house fall down?
Yeah. Well, you did say, in your defense, you said there was a lot of emotions going through your mind, so that we'll let that slide.
Okay.
And then we get the very end. The very end, where we have this this monologue from Sue's mom talking about how they're going to move away.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually the doctor says Sue's going to forget everything. No, we did not go to the funeral. She does confirm that Tommy is dead because she says,
Right.
after Tommy and the rest of the students. And it's this very great, very angelic yet creepy scene of Sue walking down with some flowers. And I guess the way they did that is Amy Irving was walking backwards. Very, very. So she's walking backwards very slow in real life. So she's not trying to trip over her gown. And then Brian De Palma just played it in reverse. So that's how it looks like she's kind of moving like that.
Okay.
And she goes to the plot, the for sale plot, because the house is gone. Carrie White's house is gone. And the for sale plot, or the for sale sign, is in a cross. And they've written Carrie White burns. Some asshole wrote Carrie White burns in hell on it. And she puts the flowers down. And what was your reaction when she puts the flowers down? And that is Sissy Spacek's arm that comes out of the gravel and grabs Sue. And then Sue wakes up, and you can tell just she's gone, and she's going to be traumatized for a long time, because that ending usually makes a lot of, the top 10 jump scares or the top 10, best endings in horror movies. Were you expecting a jump scare at the end?
No,
Did it get you?
Yeah, it got me, and I was like, that was really good.
Yeah,
that was really good. I was it was interesting to me that even though it was Sissy Spacek's movie, that it ended on Amy Irving.
Mm-hmm.
And
it showed me, it made me think that even though she was, she tried to do good at the end, Carrie's still punishing her, from beyond the grave type of thing.
Right.
At least that's how I took it.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know how, I didn't really think about it. I was just more of like, oh, this poor girl is losing it. I mean, it was a dream of Carrie's arm coming out. So it's not Carrie punishing her from the grave.
Right. But it's the situation, maybe, I guess you'd say.
It's Amy Irving. Oh, yeah. Okay. I saw it more as Amy's, her character, Sue, overwhelming guilt of what they did to this poor girl. And now she's going to pay for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Possibly because of the mental distress that she's going through, not just of how they treated Carrie, or I also took it as no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah, that's a good way, because, if you think about it, she is technically, so, in a roundabout way, responsible for the death of her boyfriend and all those students, because of her being part of that group of people that were, teasing her, throwing the pads at her and mocking her type of thing.
Right. If they had never asked her to the prom, then that whole thing with the blood would have not happened, and so on and so forth. See, where I said they should have just gone to her and said, her and Sue and Tommy should have just made friends with her.
Yeah. Take her out to lunch or something, something like that.
The movie would have ended so much differently.
Yeah.
Make her a throuple. So, yeah.
So that was Carrie. They did make the sequel that you started, and as you mentioned, the kids are even more disgusting. They have a list, you bang this girl, you get 10 points. You bang this one, she's only worth like 3 type of things. And it's pretty much scene for scene, just not as well directed and acted like the first film type of thing. The deaths are more graphic because it's the 90s type of thing.
Okay.
There's some recognizable people. Amy Irving does show up. The oldest kid from Home Improvement's there. One of the London twins, I don't know if it's Jeremy or Jason, is the boyfriend. He's in that. And then they did 2 remakes. They did a TV movie, which I actually prefer over this one. I think it was really well done because it's more like the book. The way that, I don't know if you know how the book is. The book starts after the fact, and it's all clippings from the newspaper, and it's like the police investigating what happened type of thing. they're bringing in, the schlub who was there helping with the pig. They bring in Sue and this and that, and it's all from their perspective, and that's how that movie is filmed. And then they remade it again, I don't know, 2010 maybe, with Chloe Grace Moretz. She plays Carrie.
Oh.
And I'm not knocking Sissy Spacek. I think Chloe is too pretty to be Carrie. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't look like an outcast. She just wears torn up, dirty clothes. That's all they do.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
I will say this. I think I prefer this Margaret White because it's Julianne Moore plays Margaret White. And she's the complete opposite of Piper Laurie. She's very low key. She's a self-harmer when she has to deal with the sins and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, and it's definitely more CGI. Like Carrie's flying around the fucking gym, like she's a ghost or something. It's worth watching for Julianne Moore, but I definitely would not be watching it multiple times.
Okay. All right.
So, all right.
I'll go. Yeah, I think we talked almost as long as the movie was.
Just about. But overall, I am glad you liked it. Let's get to our favorite scene and your score, Melissa. What is your favorite scene and your score for this film?
My favorite scene was them pulling up in the parking lot and Carrie asking to wait. I know it's not even a horror scene.
No, it doesn't matter.
And how thoughtful and caring Tommy was at that moment. That was my favorite scene.
Okay.
The movie, I would give.
Be honest. It's fine. Be honest.
Well, I'll say, there's always, I can't give it 5 because now I got to go check out the other ones. I would give it 3.5 statues of Jesus from the prayer closet.
Oh, no. Not bad. 3.5. Let's see here. I think my favorite scene, I've already said it, is the scene where they're dancing and they're spinning around and it's just the two of them. It's nice to, even though we know it's going to happen, it's nice seeing Carrie having a good night. It's nice seeing Tommy enjoying himself because he did not want to go there. And it's nice seeing him fall for her. I'm going to give this, the only thing I'm really going to dock it for is the music during the gym workout punishment was awful. Like, it's very cringy. The montage where the boys are renting the $10 tuxes and that music is bad, and then they speed up the dialogue for some fucking reason. I'm going to take off a 0.5 point for that, but I'm going to give it 4.5 dirty pillows. I really, this is one of those movies that I don't get tired of seeing. I think the pacing is really well. I didn't realize how quick it went for me. There are some trigger warnings, if you are an animal lover. So I'm still apologizing about that. But I am glad that overall you did enjoy the film, Melissa.
Right. I think I want to take back the statues of Jesus and call it 3.5 70s full frontal bushes. That was a lot. That was a lot of bush.
It was a different time, my dear.
It
really was.
Scene.
Good
that was
Lord.
So much hair.
And now, hey, you know what? Now we know why that Steven Spielberg was on set flirting with all the women, and he ended up asking Amy Irving out and married her within a few years.
Right. That's right. Okay.
He's definitely got a type. So
So, all right. So, since I chose this film, you were tasked with the job of choosing the next one. So what is it going to be?
Well, I think this might be another room situation because my dear, I said this in our text, my dear friend, my dear co-host, Miss Melissa Hill, she wanted something about, it's going to be Halloween time because it will be October, our next get together. And you wanted something to do with like people in costumes doing goofy things. So I couldn't think of anything like that. So I said, what about if we pick like a goofy or stupid movie where people are actually in costumes? And you
Good.
said, hey, goofy, stupid, in costume sounds great. So I went with that and ran. So I decided, I said, so do you want, what did I say? I said, did you want demons? Do you want goblins? Or do you want, what did I say? I don't know if I said literature characters or fairy tale characters or something
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And
Fairy tale.
you said fairy tale characters. So I said, okay, here we go. I said, we're gonna discuss the slasher movie that has taken the internet by storm for some fucking reason. It's called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Oh, that's right. You did tell me the name of the.
And
Winnie the
it is
Pooh.
free. It is free on Tubi, so it
Okay.
will not cost you one penny because you will feel ripped off watching it for free.
Winnie the Pooh. What's it called? Blood
Winnie
and
the
Honey.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
And so you said, yeah, you said literary creatures, and then you said the next episode, you said goblins. Well, I'll go ahead and tell you now, it's going to be one of those so bad it's good, where it's kind of like The Room, where they literally have movie marathons. People watch this in theaters because of how bad it is. It's a movie that we'll go into more detail, but it's called Troll 2.
Okay.
We'll leave it at that. But that will be the next two episodes will be very, very interesting. But I think, like with The Room, special shout out to Neil for sitting through The Room and sitting through an episode with us. He made it a lot of fun. I think it'll make at least a couple good episodes. With that, I want to thank everybody that watched this. Chris showed up for a little bit. Russell, Anthony was here, and
we got 6 whole people.
Hey. That's more than we usually ever get on a Wednesday.
Oh, really? Okay.
I want to tell people, please check out the Facebook page. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram. The Instagram is usually used for videos that me and Melissa do. We promote videos to promote the show. The Facebook page is where we show our past episodes and our coming soon folder, which I will be going through. And what we did is we just took everybody's suggestions and I just threw them in that folder. I'm definitely going through and eliminating a lot for things that I know that neither you or I will enjoy if they have certain scenes. We'll leave it at that. So like Toxic Avenger is not going to happen. There is some scenes with animals just for the sake of it. Whoever requested that, sorry, it's not happening. I want Melissa to enjoy this. Yeah. Oh well. So I will do that, but I will say this though. I do appreciate. I told you last time, Melissa, we got a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I will say this: we can be bought if you give us a 5-star review and actually write out the review and tell us why you enjoy the show. Don't just waste our time and just say hi. You know what I mean? Great podcast. Tell us why you like it. I will say this: if you screenshot that and you send it to the Instagram page, I will let you pick a request for the podcast for me and Melissa to do, as long as it doesn't have blatant animal torture or killing. Okay, right. We will make sure that if it has it, I am going to relay the message to Melissa, and I will tell her the scene, and it's up to her to say yes or no. And if she does say no, I will get back to the person and say, not going to happen. And there will not be any graphic scenes of sexual assault. So all you horror freaks, we will not be watching something like I Spit on Your Grave or anything like that. So as long as it meets that criteria, we will, no matter how dumb it is, we watch The Room when we're watching fucking Winnie the Pooh next time. We will put in the effort and we will make an episode just to show our appreciation that you guys do enjoy this. I mean, I have fun, shooting the shit with you every couple of weeks, and you seem like you're enjoying it, Melissa. So I'll take that.
Yeah. I do. It's again. I don't know if you should mention. All of these are going to be movies that I've never seen before.
Correct. I'm going to try my damnedest to make it 99% movies Melissa has not seen. It's not going to be strictly horror. We do need to cleanse the palate every once in a while. But if it is something that Melissa has not or has seen, and you request it, I'll throw it by her, and she can make that decision. But,
right. Yeah, because the whole premise of our show originally was
mm-hmm.
you're the horror film buff,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the horror film novice.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. Well, thank you again for anyone who tuned in or who's going to be tuning in eventually. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like Eric said, if you like the show, explain why. If you don't, also explain why.
Hey, we take criticism, just don't be a dick, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't be just because she's a bitch or because you know what you did, nothing like that.
Right. So.
Constructive criticism, maybe you don't like the knitted blanket that's behind.
Exactly. You hate my background of movies right. And my closet door being open. You want me to change my hat. I would say wear the same fucking hat. In every episode. We'll take constructive criticism. Like I said,
if there's a hat, because when I had my radio show, sometimes there was a couple times people sent me hats because I always wore a hat. Mm-hmm. And the reason I always wear a hat, for those of you, is I have a huge forehead.
Here we go.
So I wear the hat because it helps with lighting purposes.
Hey, that's why I have this. It's a I wear the ball cap because it's called a cheap man's toupee. You know what I mean? I got a light right over there, and I don't want to blind my co-host.
Anyway, well, Eric, thanks again, and have a good day at work tomorrow. I'm going to be at the Orchard again, and again, thank you everyone for tuning in. And hey, if maybe someone could create some theme music for us.
Yeah, we will. If that happens, and we are, given permission, because YouTube is very sticky with that type of shit.
Well, if it's created,
right,
it won't be a problem.
I hope not. YouTube's kind of weird like that, but we will make sure to give you a shout out in every episode to make sure you get credit for it. We will do that because
exactly.
We enjoy doing this show, and we hope you enjoy listening and hearing us ramble longer than the movie. So with that, Melissa, have a good night, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks for that piece of crap Winnie the Pooh movie.
Winnie the Pooh, Hunt Blood and Honey, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's your own fault, my dear.
Sounds awesome.
It's not.
Okay. All right.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.